Fishing for answers, don't get hooked. Fishing for answers, don't get hooked. Fishing for answers, don't get hooked. Fishing calls ain't got
All
insurance. Phishing
right.
texts ain't got you hooked. Stay away.
Thank you for joining us again for another episode of Fishing for Answers. Today I'm here with Allan Abrams. He is the CISO at Kipu Health. So I'm really excited to speak with you. Maybe you could introduce yourself real quickly today.
Sure. Yeah. So Allan Abrams, CISO of Kipu Health. So my responsibilities are security for the company, back office, the platforms themselves, the infrastructure supporting them, the code bases, as well as the back office IT functions. So think things like the Office 365 environment, lead to cache systems, the SSO that we leverage throughout the company, authentication, all those types of things. So normal IT guy stuff in the back office, security for everything.
All right. How did you get into cybersecurity? What's sort of your career path that got you here? Taking a little bit of a look at your LinkedIn, it looks like you're a little bit like me, a lifelong nerd. Would I be incorrect in saying that?
No, I think that's probably accurate. Started very, very young. Loved computers from the moment the first arrived at home. I'd say pretty typical story for folks of my generation in the field. In high school, probably the thing that sticks out the most is the 2600 Quarterly Magazine. My friends and I, who, as you can imagine, are all either in IT and security now,
Hmm.
used to love getting those issues, trying things out. um, Fortunately, the high school we attended at the time is no longer the high school. So I think I might be safe in saying our first foray was actually the payphones that sat outside of the,
Well, I
the
mean, I
front
think that was
lobby.
everyone's first foray because it was expensive to call long distance last or back then. I mean, unless you knew how to freak.
For sure, for sure. Definitely had our share of those AT&T little red phones with the alligator clips and all the things. So that certainly ignited the passion and really kicked off my journey up to this point.
That's awesome. So at some point, I mean, has it been IT the whole time, or was there some point when you just, made that transition into cybersecurity and what led to that?
Yeah, so so when I graduated high school, I was actually fixing phones, those Nokia brick phones, specializing in putting colorful LEDs on the boards themselves. Unfortunately, that was for one of those little wireless shops that no longer exist. And after that, I didn't have a whole lot of choices in the world, so I became a landscaper. Here in Oklahoma in the summer, it's very, very hot. And I had the designation of digging irrigation ditches by
Ooh.
hand. So certainly working in the sun led me to realize that I definitely wanted to work in an air conditioned position. And eventually I griped enough around enough folks that someone just finally told me, hey, you realize you have a skill set that people will pay you for, right? I honestly didn't know.
Yeah.
So I went to work for the University of Oklahoma Health Sciences Center, actually doing patient billing at the time, and started bugging the hell out of the help desk. I did every single time I saw them. And fortunately, my efforts gained me a role that allowed me to actually work with them every Friday, which ultimately led to a full time role. So I definitely came up through the ranks of information technology from the bottom, to network administrator, eventually becoming a security analyst for Parkland Memorial Hospital. That actually is an interesting story. So I was working for a company called Security Solutions, and I recall the day the CFO came into my office as the network administrator and said, "Hey, we just received this from our bank, and I think it belongs to you." So I kind of opened up the little packet, and it was actually an enrollment form that the merchant bank for our organization actually notifying us, guess what? We enrolled you in our PCI program.
Okay.
So I immediately kind of dug into what that was, and that's actually what led me to the local security community here in Oklahoma. Once kind of reaching out to them, learning what PCI was all about, I realized very quickly, like, hey, I actually really enjoy this stuff. So I began looking for an opportunity to work exclusively in the security field. That's what led me to Parkland Memorial Hospital back in 2008, I think. And really, my career just kind of took off from there. Certifications, any sort of learning material I could get my hands on, I took advantage of. Had opportunity to work in almost every business vertical at this point, whether it be education, financial, healthcare, um, government work, private sector, private equity, venture capital. Like, I've done it all. So for me, security was a passion that really unlocked opportunities I never would have otherwise had. So
I like it. I actually have a few questions from that. Number one, if you were a subscriber to 2600 early on, did you ever make it to any of the early DEF CONs?
I did not. No, no, I did not. In
Have you
fact,
been to one of them?
I have. I have. It's been quite some time. I
Okay.
yeah. Go ahead.
I know what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but do you have any good DEF CON stories?
Um, so my stories really revolve around hanging out with my crew. I can appreciate all things DEF CON has to offer. I absolutely can, and I think it's a fantastic symposium, especially for folks that are new to the field, because what it really shows you is the breadth that the field offers, right?
Yeah.
And I tell folks all the time, especially when I was teaching, that while security may seem like a very narrowly focused sort of job opportunity, it's really not, because it has so many specialty segments within it, from regulatory compliance to forensics to penetration testing. And obviously blue team, red team, purple team has really brought a new dynamic to the field and specialties that come along with it. You've got a lot of legal aspects now from a privacy perspective that have really found their way into the field. And there's more, and it's continuing to grow, right? We
Yeah.
seem to be a bit of a catch-all in a lot of cases, for kind of all the things that approach any sort of regulatory compliance, right? And as a result, we find ourselves in a position where not only do we have to be subject matter experts on that particular subject, but we also have to understand the risk that really can come to an organization associated with any of those specialties.
Well, I
So
think our
for
job is risk, but yeah, definitely understanding those. Continue. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. And I agree. That is one aspect of it, certainly. But for DEF CON, that's really what my appreciation for it came from. I was a member of the local DC 405 for several years, made a lot of really good friends and connections there. Unfortunately, many of those folks have actually moved out of area and kind of taken on their own careers and roles, and we're all kind of old folks now. So, we're all shepherding our children through adulthood at this point. But DEF CON has a special place in my heart, indeed.
Yeah, no, I mean, same. I didn't actually even go this year, which is the first time in I don't know, over a decade that I hadn't gone to DEF CON. Just went to Black Hat. Just didn't have the time and couldn't make it. But same. I mean, and tons of crazy, wild stories. And I mean, to this day, there's a mini con at DEF CON that will hopefully live on forever. That I accidentally started one day at DEF CON. So
Oh yeah,
uh,
what is that?
it's PepperCon.
Okay.
Have you ever seen it? Did you ever get any of the pepper challenges where the people would peer pressure you into, you know, eating so much hot pepper that it might make you rock in a corner or something?
I see. I have been approached. I never took anyone up on them.
Hey, we've
Very
gotten
cool.
a lot of. I mean, we've got DT before. I mean, just to name it, one. But no, we've got quite a few of the big names in there, and a lot of the goons, are part of it. We actually had one goon. Crazy story. I mean, he was absolutely insane. The very first year we met him, not the first year we had PepperCon, because I think we just had PepperCon 9, I think it was. But anyway, the first year we met this goon, somebody gave him this pepper powder, and he didn't know what it was and just snorts it.
Oh.
And so we're like, we send people to check on him. We're like, no, make sure he's okay. Like, let's get him some water. And, we sort of stop what we're doing to make sure he's okay. And the next day, he says, well, I got to go to the bathroom, and they disappear. They often do when they've had a lot of hot pepper, they just disappear on you. But the next day I see him and I ask him about it, and he says, oh man, that was awesome. And so since that, every year he finds PepperCon and he gets a bump of this like ghost pepper to snort. It's insanity.
That's
But
intense.
that has nothing to do with human security whatsoever. Uh, so I want to do or jump to a fun, I guess, sort of portion of the podcast, and that is talking about AI. There's so much really cool stuff that we can do. In fact, I was playing with it right before we got on. I was, while I was waiting on you to join, I was like, hey, let's make a security awareness video, or I'm sorry, audio, a song, and it's just insane how high of quality some of this production value is. Have you played with any of the AI, and if so, tell some of the things that you find really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. So definitely been playing with it quite a bit. Of course, that's always the talk of town, has been, I think, for the entire year. Um,
Since
but
1958, I think.
yeah,
But
I think this year in particular, right, it's come to the forefront. But so, for me, I really like a lot of the transcription services that offer that sort of summarization of conversations. Certainly the Zoom AI
they join
summarization.
your meeting for you automatically, and then you've got this summary in your email when you leave, or when you don't even go to it.
Absolutely. I think that provides an incredible amount of value. And I think the applications of that particular offering that AI has really brought to light is becoming more and more valuable. We're a big collaborative shop using Slack. So, I was actually just on a demo yesterday reviewing their new AI feature set that sort of condenses a lot of the chats that are made available to folks, and really anything that your account has access to is kind of one of the common themes I'm seeing. So certainly that summarization for several business units is incredibly valuable. I think really even beyond IT and security teams, the implementations for sales teams, implementation teams, go-to-market teams is fantastic. Customer service, because what you get is that snapshot of context from the entire organization very quickly, and it allows you to make decisions on the fly.
Well, having had a junior customer success person or customer service person recently give bad instructions to somebody, it's not lost on me that an AI, that as we can get rid of these hallucinations, an AI can make all of that much, much more accurate, empower that same junior to do better, but potentially even field all of the tier one level requests without you. And for that matter, one of the things that I expect to see in the very near future is the ability to send a clone of yourself to a meeting. And you know what the meeting's about because you've got an agenda. You know what you think about the point. So you tell the AI, hey, this is what, these are my 2 cents, go. And it'll go and, do the meeting as sort of a proxy for you. I don't know. I think we're only beginning to scratch the surface of knowing what's possible.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment. We're scratching the surface. A lot of work to go, right? I think it's still a very sound approach with any AI model that comes across your path to remember garbage in, garbage out, right? It's still a
Absolutely.
very, very real uh, uh, sort of thought process that I think we all need to make sure we go through because degenerative AI is very real. And with the way the models are being developed and offered in the market today, it has to be siloed for any organization that protects sensitive information. And as a result, it's really the responsibility of the organization that's a customer of the AI tenant to ensure that the quality of the data being ingested is high, right? Otherwise, you'll find yourself in a position where you have the opposite effect of what was intended. Now, all of a sudden, your customer service reps are telling a customer the absolute opposite of what you may want them to. Customer success is now chasing down leads based off of the AI prompt responses that will lead them nowhere. And then there's still a lot of work to do with the guardrails as well. I haven't come across an AI vendor yet that has 100% confidence in the protections around guardrails and the models they're offering to the market today. So again, I guess just to make the point, you're right, a lot of work to do, but certainly the potential is vast and limitless.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's interesting that it's some of the more creative tasks that it's really, really good at. Actually, you want to hear this Security Awareness Month song? It's really clever.
Yeah.
Here, let's play this because I think it really does go to say, and it created this in about 12 seconds, maybe less. It was just absolutely insane.
It's Security Awareness Month, my friends. A time when online safety never ends. So gather round and lend an ear for tips to keep your data clear. First off, your password's yours alone. Don't share it like it's a public phone. Change it often, make it strong, and your accounts will hum along. Next, think twice before you click. That shady link could do the trick. Fishers lurk with every mate. Don't let them reel in your face.
I don't know. I think that's absolutely insane that it can do that. And I mean, and we've got text to video now where I can take your picture. Like I go to your profile, Facebook profile, I grab 3 pictures, I upload them to this AI, and now I tell it the video that I want it to create, and it will create that video with you in it in 1080p. Right now it's a little bit glitchy, but then again, the images were glitchy a year ago, and now they're almost indistinguishable, which is actually a really fun segment we have, which is it AI or stock photography? Do you want to play?
Absolutely. Let's play.
All right. Okay. So the very first picture that we have up here is a frog.
I'm going to say that's real.
That is actually AI, not stock
Yeah,
photography. That is AI.
that's fantastic.
What about this one?
It looks real to me.
Once again, it's AI. They're all AI. But
You stack the deck, but I think it's great. You know what, with pictures like these, and I'm not sure how many folks out there kind of go through the exercise with the legal team and AI, but what I've seen quite a bit of with most images is there's always little characteristics that can help you identify what was generated by AI and not. And what's really interesting is the copyright lawsuits that are coming forward as a result. But the more and more, I guess, perfect these images become, the more difficult that those lawsuits become as well. And I
Yeah.
think one of the key things folks need to remember about AI is today it's being governed predominantly by case law, right? So I think everybody in the industry is really waiting for a large governing body to come out and create a framework basically that allows folks to understand what's off limits, what's allowed, and kind of how you can build products around AI going forward without increasing a risk to your organization.
Okay, but and we do need a governing body, absolutely, and we've got to do more than just wait on Germany to create some policy and then follow suit. But at the same time, isn't that trying to close Pandora's box a little bit? I mean, it's. I feel like we are so far behind. We should have had policy before we had AI that had this type of capability, and now it's sort of like, to me, almost like the developer that forgot about cybersecurity, and it's very difficult to patch that cybersecurity onto that app after the fact. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think? I mean, are we closing Pandora's or trying to close Pandora's box a little bit?
I think it depends on the context. So, short answer is yes, absolutely. But I think the long answer really has to put the focus back on the data that we're protecting. And I think that when you focus on the data itself, and of course, to me, that means private health information, right? Personal health information. It means PII. It means protecting individuals' lives. And in our case, in the business we're in, some of the most vulnerable people in our country, right? So when I think about creating some sort of framework that assists with not only creating guardrails around the development of AI, incorporating it into your products, but also how we ethically present AI solutions to the market that gives us confidence that we're doing everything we can to protect that sensitive information.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as the owner of an AI company, I will say that protecting data or customer data is one of the most important things for any company. By the way, I do want to point out this picture that you see here. This was actually created by AI, and I picked this one as one of the examples. I didn't put it in for yours because it's almost cheating. But because everyone knows that AI is bad at create or doing hands, and I'm just it baffles me that this is what they're I don't know what they're able to do. Now, I think back on the subject of uh, just of AI in general, is that we definitely have got to be aware of biases that are going to exist in these. But I think we got to be aware of the possibility as much as the threat. So let's take that same PHI. Currently, a lot of these rare disease groups, they are sharing around PHI like crazy, and it's not really regulated because it's all the person that owns the PHI consents to it, right? But you've got all of these rare diseases, and these AIs have shown promise at being able to help with like diagnostics and things like
Mhm.
that. And so I do think there's value in figuring out how we give this AI or give the AIs the data, because it's going to make our lives better when they can help with help the doctor with diagnostics, or they can help us with whatever it happens to be. So I just think there's a lot of really exciting upside here too. Of course, Skynet's the downside.
Indeed, yeah. Skynet's always the downside. But no, and I do agree. In my previous role, I worked for a fantastic company, chronic kidney disease company, And we absolutely use machine learning and AI against health records so that we could actually diagnose stage 1, 2, and 3 kidney disease. So what's very interesting about that particular disease is the typical individual would never know they actually have it until it's too late. And there's this concept in kidney care called crashing into dialysis. And that's when folks realize that they have chronic kidney disease. So through those methodologies and through programs that offer holistic care, you're absolutely right. The opportunity for AI to not only improve the quality of individuals' life, but also to lengthen their lives is very dramatic.
So let me jump around here. It is Security Awareness Month. Are you doing anything special at your company to sort of celebrate it and just, keep security front of mind this month?
Yeah, so we're pretty blessed. We maintain a pretty strong security culture. I like to think that it's really predominantly because of our coworkers more so than our efforts in security. We absolutely do information security awareness training. We do not do computer-based training. I don't believe in it. I believe in a live person communicating the training and allowing folks to participate, because I think that for security awareness, we really have to look beyond the individuals that work at our companies. And we have to make sure that we're instilling the values that they need, not only to protect the company, but also to protect themselves, their children, their family, the elderly folks in their family. And as a result, it places a significant emphasis on that training for us. And what we found is that when we personalize these sessions such that we can provide them content that's usable in their personal lives, it creates a better culture around the entire organization, and it also creates a significant collaborative footing that we leverage. We have a security channel in our Slack, and everyone in the organization knows they can use it. They're not intimidated by it. They don't feel like they're putting the team out by using it. And what we found is that it becomes just this amazing collaborative effort, not only for the security team, but also between individuals within the company. So that's kind of how we approach it. We certainly celebrate it with posts, kind of highlighting things going on, either in the market itself or more broadly, just across cybersecurity in general. But to me, it's really about that human connection more than the act of providing security awareness training.
That human connection is what makes them care. Whether it's, helping protect their identity so that they can get a mortgage, or something else like or getting a car loan. It's that element that makes them care, and really we do need to be equipping them, because if they can take that data and that knowledge and share it with, let's say, their parents who are in retirement, and save their parents from getting caught victim in a scam, well, that's a win. And it goes way beyond just that one little thing, because now that employee is not going to be distracted because their parents now have fallen victim to the scam or whatever it happens to be. So I think it is really important, and it is very interlinked. And the only way we get people to care, like you said, is we have to personalize it, and I think that goes beyond just hey, this is how it impacts your personal life. But I think there's a little element of personalizing it to their role too. I mean, would you agree?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. Particularly when you're speaking about highly targeted individuals, right? Senior leadership, executive leadership, board members, folks like that. It's incredibly important that you really focus on what that exposure looks like, helping them understand what their digital footprint is, giving stories about past experiences. You asked me about some stories prior to this. I will share one with you. In a prior life, a few companies back, we actually had our CEO go on a trip to the Bahamas, some sort of exotic locations, family trip. And what we found was their daughter actually posted on social media, very excited about the trip, made lots of posts, and actually defined the day and time they would be traveling. And it was during that time, that window of time, that we actually received a significant phishing attack that appeared as though it came from the CEO. And when we did our investigation, root cause analysis, and really got to the root of it, what we found was it was actually no fault of anybody in the organization. It was no fault of the CEO themselves. It was actually rooted in one social media post by an excited child, right? That they were going on vacation that led the attacker to know the window of opportunity, right? So,
But isn't that why we should be teaching security awareness in our schools? We should be teaching it, from the youngest grades because they're online. They're in games like Roblox or Minecraft. I mean, from the youngest of ages, they're connected and potentially being targeted. And yet I don't think our society gives it enough attention until, well, all of a sudden now they're about to work and access, health information or, classified data or whatever it happens to be. I really think we've got to do a lot more to get it into our schools too.
I completely agree. That said, I want to give a shout out to an associate of mine, Adam Flowers. He actually works for the Canadian County Sheriff's Department, actually been on TV. He specializes in cyber crimes against children. And he is my hero because every opportunity to go into a school in our local area, he takes it, he goes in, and that's exactly what he teaches. And certainly from a community outreach perspective, I think one of the most ethical things that any security practitioner can do is to spread that awareness to the next generations.
Yeah.
And without knowing your age, assuming we're probably around the similar age, right? We
I
had
think
a very
so.
yeah, we had a very unique sort of upbringing, right? Because we grew up without the internet, and then we experienced the internet, adolescent to teenager sort of. For me, a little bit younger, but uh, point being, the generations now that are coming into adulthood is the first generation in human history that
Yeah.
has not known what it's like to not have the internet. And by virtue, there's an inherent sort of trust that comes along with that, almost like cookies and milk, right? Or watching your favorite cartoon show on a Saturday morning,
Yeah.
which means it's that much more important that at an early age, they understand what the ramifications and the threats are that they face just by picking up a tablet and connecting to the internet.
Yeah,
Um,
and
it's
for the parents listening, you should be talking to your kids about the dangers and the predators online. Know who they're talking to, particularly when they're really young. But they need to be aware of this because it's just going to be. I mean, it's the same as looking both ways before you cross the street. You just simply have to be aware in today's day and age.
That's right. No, I couldn't agree more. And the statistics show that the crimes are on the rise.
Yeah,
It's we're at a point in human history where someone from anywhere in the world has the ability to communicate with anybody on the internet, and there's nobody that's safe, particularly children that are just trying to download a game because they think it's a Roblox add-on. To your point earlier, and what it really is malware of some sort that wants to record videos on the camera, wants to sniff conversations, really anything that you can imagine. And there's profit in it. So the motivation is there.
yeah.
So no, I completely agree. It's something that the community needs to do a better job of bringing forward. It's really way beyond just protecting your organization at this point.
I agree. So I got to ask you the question, carrot or stick? Now, I know it's not so binary, but we are going to pretend that we live in a binary world and there's a gun to your head. So now that this gun is to your head, do you pick carrot or stick? That's the only tool you can use for the rest of your life.
Always carrot.
I like it.
Always carrot.
Talk to me a little bit about why. What's some of the inspiration behind carrot?
Because you can motivate someone forever when you give them a reason to be motivated beyond pain, right? Stick infers that I'm going to get whacked because I did something wrong. Well, I think in this community, especially, we can all relate to getting whacked a lot growing up. And it never stopped me. So I'm sure it never stopped most of the folks listening.
No, well, they
But
did a study where they told these college football players what school to go to, and then picked what school they would pick, and they found that 76% of the time they went with the opposite school of what they were told to pick because people just do the opposite. But I do think that's part of security awareness that we have to be aware of, and I agree. No, not stick. Carrot is so much more effective. Now, I will say, when I was younger, I was a fan of the stick. Took me a little while to learn that. Um, any stories there? I mean, did it take you a while to learn? Have you always been, carrot?
I would say, in terms of myself, my behavior would change when offered a carrot and never when offered a stick. And that was probably one of the more frustrating things my parents had to live through in my early childhood, quite frankly. We obviously grew up in a bit of a different generation where certain forms of discipline were much more acceptable, right, than today. But I'll tell you, I could be punished 1,000 times and I'd turn, if I wanted to do it because there was a carrot involved, I would have done it again, right? It just didn't matter. I in school had my troubles, right? I told you one of many, many stories with those 2,600 quarterly magazines, and certainly a few of them caught up to me, right? To the extent where, I had to do things like community service and see judges and all kinds of fun stuff and counselors and
I
principals.
only ever got
Right?
sued. And we spent a whole day on the difference between TCP and UDP. It was great. I defended
Oh my
myself,
goodness.
so why not confuse everybody? So
And for the offense, was it a matter of changing the approach so that you could achieve the same or similar results? Or was it a matter of, I'm just never going to do this again? I'm taking it out of my portfolio because that stick
well,
changed my behavior.
yeah, that's fair too. Um, okay, so let me see. I've asked you about carrot versus stick. There was something I wanted to jump to here. Okay. So I want to know, uh, do you want to put on your hacker hat and see how good you can hack some people?
So maybe we'll see.
No, wrong one. Wrong
Am
one.
I going to get a stick?
No, no. But I was thinking, and I'm always looking for good new phishing ideas. So one of the new segments I decided to bring to the show is craft a fish. So
All right.
let's pick a group. Who do we want to fish? Who do you want to fish first? Like a target within an organization.
Ooh, so I will give you a target. I'll give you the administrative assistant to the executive team.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, that is actually my ideal target too, because it's just the perfect target. You don't go directly after the top person. You go after the person that's right next to them and probably has more access, right?
There's
Um,
three roles that I always go for in an organization when given the opportunity: the administrative assistant, the
okay,
IT help desk
that's a
in
good
its
one.
entirety, and any sort of janitorial maintenance facility staff that has a presence online.
I like gatekeepers too. They are incredibly effective at because their job is to keep people away. When you ask them for help, and people just tend to trust anything they tell them, and so you get them to tell the story instead of you, and the person trusts them.
They
I've got
also
it.
have physical access
They
to
do.
the majority, if not all, of the facility. And when you are trying to reach out and touch an organization, right, you're trying to do that through a human.
Yeah.
So that's what you're targeting, is the access they have, not
Yeah.
the individual themselves.
So we're targeting the administrative assistant. What do we hit them with? What can they not resist clicking on?
So we always have to start with the motivation, right? So we're always going to scrape the web to some extent. Harvester is my personal favorite. And we're going to identify what it is that makes them tick, right? Either in their personal lives or in their professional lives. And what we want to do is we want to create a sense of urgency, right? So that we can increase the likelihood that they click our link, download our attachment, put their username and password in a fake website, whatever the case may be, right? So, based off of the information identified through the reconnaissance effort, we will typically use something to the effect of, and we'll pick on a stereotypical sort of old school executive, and I want to preface it that way because we certainly live in a different world today. But we'll say the old school executive that likes to golf takes off early on a Friday and wants to go golfing, right? And they just so happen to have delegated the responsibility of scheduling a tea time to the administrative assistant, right? So we will masquerade as maybe the golf club that we know that they frequent, and that this administrative assistant frequently schedules maybe a tea time. We can go a bit beyond that, double click on the club itself, identify who typically makes those reservations. We can find ourselves an open SMTP relay off of a server that we've identified somewhere, probably a compromised organization we've got a foothold in with a nice back door. And then we send that email to the administrative assistant from the person responsible for scheduling the tea time with an urgent need to reschedule that tea time either earlier or later. And here are your options in this attachment. And by the way, I've embedded my malware. So that, I guess, top of mind.
No, so I like it. You went way deeper than I expected you to, but I love it. But I do think that you bring something up that happens a lot from the real bad guys. You fished her according to her role. So you're not trying to create a fish that takes her outside of her typical 9 to 5. You're trying to create a fish that works within her typical 9 to 5 so that she's more likely to do it, or he is more likely to do it. And I think that we're seeing a lot more of that, or at least I'm seeing a lot more of that in the wild, where they know what department you're in, what you do for a living, and even who your coworkers are and how to use that against you. Are you seeing similar things?
Oh, absolutely. Um, Probably one of the most consistent attacks we see is smishing. And it seems almost like clockwork. Anytime a new employee enters the organization, within the first 2 weeks, they receive an SMS text message that appears to be from the CEO of the company asking them to purchase gift cards. If they go down the rabbit hole, subsequently scratching off the back, giving the numbers to the attacker. And then, of course, when they go to submit their expense report to recoup the funds out of their personal money that they've used to acquire those gift cards, obviously the finance team's like, gift cards? We never asked for, right, one of those kind of deals. So and I think most, because that's traveled with me now for 5 years. So I don't really see it going away. There's not many good defenses against it other than awareness, but certainly that one, it's like clockwork.
But I mean, the gift card scams, they still work
Mhm.
and they're still being used. Now, I mean, I had an intern that asked me about gift cards one time on his first day of work. Now, being the CEO, I will tell you there's another text that or somebody typically gets on that first day of work too. And that is a text from that new employee to the CEO. Almost every time somebody starts, I get a text that same day saying, "Hey, I updated my bank or I changed my bank account. Can you help me update my payroll?" And obviously I don't fall for it, but I find it interesting, particularly because they're using local numbers. And what that tells me is that they're using the enterprise, relay services that allow you to pick a local number. I mean, I don't buy that they just have phones compromised everywhere. They're using a service or they're spoofing. But I think some of the times I don't know. I don't know. I haven't dug into necessarily all of these attacks, but there's a lot of different trade craft there. And a lot of times, particularly when they're targeting them personally, they're hitting you where it hurts. I mean, there's no bar, and I mean nothing held back. And I know we see a lot of these romance scams just everywhere, and
Mhm.
that's a large portion of what those text messages that you're talking about tend to be.
Yeah, so certainly shout out to the old school asterisk servers that were easy to compromise and allowed you to do long distance calling and texting. But no, certainly the services that are available today to change your number on a dime are incredible. And I'll tell you another interesting thing I've been seeing. It's as I've dug into lead to cash systems more and more on the IT side of my role, particularly the marketing systems, I've found very fascinating because they use a lot of the technologies that we use in security in a different way, right? And I'm sure you've noticed from a lot of the sales folks and things that reach out to you, they'll reach out to you on a local number in
Oh
most cases,
yeah, yeah, they
you
do.
know, same exact technology, just used in a different way.
Well,
So it's
that's why I spotted it, because we built these tools. I mean, I guess I do see this from a little bit of different perspective because I do run a company that's scaling that large, enterprise scale of, phishing simulations and education and stuff. So I know how I built those things out. And I'm sorry, if you want to send something local, there's services for that. And it just makes me think that maybe we also need to do a better job of knowing who our customers are and how they're using our platforms too. I don't know if you saw the DEF CON or heard the DEF CON talk last year. That was about, I want to say it was CloudFront and a tool called Mail Channels. And they had learned how you could sign up for a free CloudFront account and install the mailing tool. And you could send a validated email that would pass any of the checks, and encrypted email at that, from, like, I don't know, half of the Fortune 500s that were out there, because they were all on there, and it was any other company that was on it. But it's just, there's things like this that happen, but even when there aren't, we see those fish that, have you seen the ones that pretend that they've, okay, let me rewind. They are from a fake vendor, and it appears to be a conversation between a top executive in your company and this vendor. And the executive says, "Yeah, I want to buy that. That's cool. Hey, reach out to Allan and he'll get you paid." And then they'll
Mhm.
forward that to you, and because it's a fake email chain, it's literally just text. It could be the body of the email. It's not a real email. It looks perfect. You see your CEO's actual email address, which can work so effectively, and it's scary because a lot of these finance departments are moving so quickly, processing so much, and I've heard of way too many of those becoming very close calls. Now, I haven't heard of any of those being successful, but I would imagine there's been quite a few for sure.
Oh yeah, no, we same with us. Exactly as you mentioned, we've absolutely seen them. We've seen them appear to come from vendors soliciting payment. We've seen them appear to come from customers soliciting refunds. Yeah, the whole gambit. You hit the nail on the head.
Okay, so it is Security Awareness Month. And one of the things that I've been trying to do in every episode is ask the CISO for some advice for the non-technical user. So, what advice do you have for just the average person that doesn't know technology like you or I do on how to avoid becoming victim or falling victim to some of these scams?
Absolutely. So I'll go a bit different. I'm sure you've had tons and tons of great advice. So, at risk of potentially repeating a previous guest's advice, what I would say is when your information is compromised and you start receiving notifications that your information has been compromised, it's almost it's almost so common these days that we've become disillusioned to the fact that it happened. So my advice would be, don't ignore the letter. Take the free identity theft protection. Familiarize yourself with the three major credit bureaus. Understand the process to freeze your credit. And by doing so, uh, because your information is going to be compromised. I mean, that's just the reality of the world that we live in today. It's all about how you react to it, right? So incident response is a huge focus that is obviously predominant in security, but it should be a big focus in people's individual lives as well. If your faucet was leaking, you would call a plumber. In this case, your information leaked. And in most cases, you're receiving a free service to stop the leak. Take advantage, don't ignore it, don't throw it away and just assume that everything's going to be okay, because Lamborghinis aren't cheap. And if you've got the credit to afford a loan on a Lamborghini, someone very well may take out that loan on your behalf someday.
And don't believe them when they say your password wasn't compromised. Change it anyway. Anytime you've had an account compromised, or really just anytime you're worried about a password, change it. A guest earlier was talking about how if you don't have MFA, you may as well just assume that's compromised. And I agree. I think that's the other thing is make sure you have MFA on all of your accounts.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
All right. Well, that is it for another episode of Phishing for Answers. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us today. Thank you so much and have a great day.